A young girl walks down a familiar street, but to her surprise, she never seemed to notice the small record shop that sits idly by.
あれ、こんなとこに CD ショップあったっけ?
Very quickly, she confides in this secret little space. It's welcoming and genuine, the perfect place for young Aya here to openly express her deep innate love for music. But there is also something else within this store she is gratified by.
時々行く CD ショップに気になってる人がいる。カウンターの向こうでつまんなそうにしている黒ずくめのお兄さんだ。今日もかっこいい。押せる。いた。うわ、髪引っ掛けて。
取れましたかね。すいません、触っちゃって。
The two seem to have really hit it off. Aya Uesawa is clearly head over heels for the boy dressed in black, and he seems pretty receptive to her consistent presence here at the store. Oh, wait, hold on, sorry, there's an issue in the script here. Did I say he? My bad, because actually...
Guys, I'm tired of all the nitty and gritty I keep having to consume. Beauty of body horror? Not today. Ecstasy that comes from existentialism? No thanks. I'm the guy she told you to worry about because I consume way too much downer media, and I'm sick of it! Since quitting my full-time job, I've just come to realize that I am a being born to the confines of solitude. You know what? I could use a little bit of romantic escapism from time to time.
I'll rip the band-aid off right now. Usually when I make these video essays, I talk about a piece of media that had a genuine impact on myself. Media that infiltrates my personal barriers are the types of media I want to bring attention to. But in today's video, that is simply not the case.
There is no way that this random weekly Yuri series posted on Twitter has captured my heart and managed to inspire me and change me in any way. Side note, I've actually been learning Japanese recently. Today's word is usotsuki. Don't know what it means though.
The guy she was interested in was not a guy at all. It's a contemporary manga with a really broad focus. While going into it, you're more or less expecting the comedic story of a girl falling for another girl without realizing it. Except that is, spoiler alert, I guess, only the case for a few early chapters. You see, the truth comes to light in less than 20 chapters time, and there are over 100 at the moment. Sorry to spoil that little tidbit, but I need to set that precedent now in order to talk about what exactly makes this manga, well, rock. Haha, music pun. Wow, I'm so clever. Look, don't worry, alright, because there is so much to this manga outside of its name and that arc. You know, despite the name of this series, this sequence is but a small fraction of what this entire franchise has on offer. And that right there, that statement alone is proof of just how enticing the writing is in this series. That right there is a brilliant and successful attempt at subverting expectations, and oh boy, does this manga do that a lot. Despite the title and original hook of this series being that very premise, it's what mangaka Sumiko Arai does going forward that makes this such a gratifying read. There are various captivating features in Sumiko Arai's work that are so unique and consistent, they in turn become hooks of their own. From exceptional character writing to genuinely compelling and vast exploration of themes, to expressive use of colour, musical referencing, and exaggerated character art, their work, The Guy She Was Interested Was Not a Guy at All, is their magnum opus, acting as the culmination of all that Sumiko Arai has on offer, and man, what a package to receive. Especially considering how this series doesn't just break the traditions we constantly see in manga, but also manages to recontextualize them.
But hey, maybe you know better than to trust some random Australian on Japanese literature. So before diving into this series, having a more intimate relationship with it and finding out exactly what is so gratifying about it, let's talk about the facts surrounding the series first.
For starters, this is a short and weekly manga published on Twitter under the mangaka's personal account. It's a series that anybody can legally read for free as soon as a chapter is completed. To this day, Sumiko Arai has basically been uploading a chapter almost each week for 2 stinking years, and yet the quality has never once dipped. But what is also incredible is for a series that started as a free service and still continues to be one, it's also managed to sell its own physical copies, with its first 2 volumes selling like wildfire in Japan. That's right, a series that started on Twitter ended in proper serialization and will soon be making a release globally as well. This series also managed to capture the eyes of marketers from Kadokawa, as it now has its own CD drama series featuring, I kid you not, Maria freaking Issei, one of the goats in the seiyuu industry. I like this woman. Okay, yeah, I know, it's very parasocial. No, I will not stop simping.
Point being, this series became a hit all on its own. A creator was so passionate about their series that they put it forward, and thankfully it managed to bear fruits. That is becoming more and more rare these days, as both manga and the internet is a very competitive market. Hell, the very website that this artist posts to is one where even the greatest of artists don't get the recognition they deserve. And look, I don't know if I'm biased because I'm just speaking from one creative to another, but seeing somebody work their butt off for their art to see it, be rewarded is really cool, and it makes me really happy.
However, a series like The Guy She Was Interested Wasn't a Guy at All was always a series that was going to be hard to ignore considering how loud and ambitious a manga it actually is. This franchise has invented its own original design language, completely unique to anything like it in the contemporary industry. The first tradition it breaks being how this manga tackles paneling. Reading a manga is an incredibly intimate experience. As the reader, you in a way take on an almost directorial role. You set the rhythm and pace of the read by going through each page based on your own reading rate. Manga has rules to follow, like following a page right to left and slowly descending down the page and onto the next. But it's how you engage with those rules that make the experience of the read so interpersonal. We read right to left because Japanese literature follows the Tatagaki principle. Whether it be light novels, newspapers, or magazines, text flows downwards and starts from right to left. But in regards to manga, how long it takes to move on to the next panel, or what our eye actively chooses to latch onto is different per person. Paneling has many advantages, from helping characters express themselves, to giving sequences a certain energy, to making more major moments pop. In this manga's case, it's utilised to the absolute fullest in ways I've not seen done before. The margins of each page are different each time, making every page a spectacle of its own. Take this sheet as an example, where one of our two leads, Koga, takes up majority of the page. This will be the first thing you see as its margin and presentation force your focus to the left. Despite the fact we are meant to read right to left, we are drawn to the left side immediately, breaking the guidelines we are used to. Though it doesn't break our immersion, nor are we confused by where we are actually meant to look. Instead, we reroute our direction back onto the original path, re-following from right to left in hopes of understanding its placement, understanding why Koga is seemingly so distant.
Look, maybe I'm just a dweeb, and that's why I think this shit is really, really cool. But it is really, really cool. And if you disagree, fuck you! You can't deny the margining and layout of these pages is a spectacle in itself.
Each page feels like it follows the principle of good poster advertisement, creating imagery and text that grab your attention first, and then when you're locked in, it proceeds to feed you information, making you read the advertisement in greater depth to understand its contents. But it's not just eye-catchy for the sake of being eye-catchy. Paneling is played with in order to convey certain story beats in a manner that's unique to the series. When expectations are shattered, so are the panels themselves. From what was once the natural green that fits backgrounds, now breaking into a pure white with shards flying across the pages. From how the edges of a panel's frame instead contort to look like puzzle pieces fitting together when a character makes a connection to events present within the story.
To even more subtle examples where parts of the environment the story is taking place in become parts of the panels themselves.
These body shots being my personal favourite use of this technique, as they aren't just a useful tool to convey to readers a character's body language or sense of personal distance, but they are also used to serve a far greater purpose, one that transcends something as grand as characterization. It shows off how pretty their clothes are!
God, Sumiko Arai has such a cool sense of fashion, man. I know I'm not beating the gay allegations anytime soon. Whatever, being gay is cool and epic, and so is fashion, alright? Outside of, this list, there is nothing greater than putting on fresh new clothes and feeling confident again. And I will die on that hill. In fact, I will fight for my place on that hill, and look, I'll probably lose because of my stick bug-like physique, but we're still fighting. These characters can change what they're wearing to drastic degrees, but it doesn't ever feel like they're betraying their own sense of style. On hot days, Aya can be seen with her hair tied up and in lighter clothing,
whilst in the cold, rugged up but still maintaining that Garu flair we're used to. Or to Koga, who adores the colour black in secret, but fails to be able to express herself through her clothing to other people, in fear they'll reject her. But when she has the confidence to break free of those constraints, the same rules apply.
Even their goddamn fashion sense has a story arc! What? That's amazing!
Outfit after outfit, hairstyle after hairstyle, the creator can allow their cast to express themselves simply through what they're wearing, with Aya's signature bright colors and Koga's intimate black always being at the forefront. And hey, speaking of colors, there is something instantly gratifying about the consistent use of green throughout this series. While the sheer fact that this mangaka even dared to use another color outside of black and white is unique and stylistic, its use thematically, however, is what makes this edition so compelling. Much like how we discussed paneling earlier, the color in this series also is in itself a tool to convey certain emotions as well as to better represent specific moments in the story. Its use varies from establishing moments of the past with moments of the present, from disappearing completely to reinforcing a feeling far more monotone, to bursting at the seams when characters are feeling their absolute happiest.
Yeah, it's a cool ass color, but you know what else is cool? Asa? The second point, we're able to navigate sequences and have emotional responses through just the color alone. Let me give you a great example of this. I'm gonna throw up a little time code here so you can skip over this if you don't want to get this little moment spoiled for you.
There is a moment in this series where one of our leads, Koga, has lost all sense of hope. She's plagued by negative thoughts and unjust comments made about her passion for music, specifically about a love song she'd been writing in secret. Exposed against her will by members of her class, she trembles in fear. In that moment, she's able to recall the kind words of Aya, the girl she cherishes most of all, painted in the green hue we know amongst the void of black. She knows deep down what she wants to say, but is unable to say it, thus leaving the remainder of her sequence drenched in black and white. But it is then that Aya hears of the situation and bursts onto the scene with fiery passion. She erupts upon those who look down on Koga's work, painting over that sinister black and white we saw for so long with that energetic green we know too well.
And just goddamn, man, isn't that just tasty? How does a manga have good fucking color direction?
While readers take on a more heads-on role in interpreting the tone of certain sequences, the color feels like the mangaka's way of tapping you on the shoulder, as if to reaffirm with just color how these moments are meant to feel rather than what these moments are meant to convey. It's really subtle and clever on Sumiko Arai's part. By default, this technique breaks traditional manga rules. While you can convey certain feelings and emotions with varying uses of black and white, by throwing another color into the mix, you have instantly widened what you as a mangaka are able to convey. Its consistency and effective use has manifested this shade of green as the very soul of this manga. You won't see a main story chapter without this shade of green. You won't see fan art without this shade of green. You won't see both official and unofficial merch without this shade of green. Hell, after this manga, you won't see green as green anymore.
AD1600? I think you meant the girls kissing color. This manga has convinced me green never existed until this manga came into being.
Now, I've talked a lot about the style of this series, but how good is the writing? Romance is a tough genre. Despite it being one of the most popular, if not the most popular genre in the anime and manga medium, a good romance is a hard thing to write.
Well, that's subjective, obviously. But that being said, I did get 1 million views on a video one time, and that makes me better than you, in my opinion, more important. That's just politics, baby!
What is so refreshing about The Guy She Was Interested Wasn't a Guy at All is the fact that this series, while catering to Yuri romance, doesn't limit itself and its characters to that focus. And to me, that's the good stuff. A lot of series tend to forget that, realistically speaking, the world doesn't revolve around two characters falling in love. The world spins with or without them, and I think this series understands that idea tenfold. Side characters don't just exist as a backdrop to the main leads and their circumstances, but instead have their own trials and tribulations. Some a direct result of our leading duos, some loosely attached. Okay, this excludes classmate Narita, who exists solely to try and bring this Yuri ship to fruition, but that being said, he's entertaining, and he's literally me when I'm reading this manga.
If Yuri was a video game, straight guys like myself would pick Narita as our avatars. Godspeed, man, I hope your efforts bear fruit someday. Yeah, they haven't kissed yet.
Making romance a part of your narrative but not the sole focus and ride is a great way to allow your story to grow into something that feels natural. Again, the reveal of Koga's identity is very early on in the series. It's what happens after and how characters develop and change that makes moments where there is true romance all the more gratifying. You have Koga, a young lady who's just trying to figure her own stuff out. From what she wants to do with her own life, to feeling the need to conceal who she truly is from the world, in fear of standing out or outright being rejected by it. A character unable to properly connect with others because she feels her own personal rhythm doesn't interconnect with anybody else. And then there is Aya, who isn't exactly her opposite, but the key to helping Koga come to better terms with herself, and in the process allow herself as a character to grow. Aya can come across to new readers as a hopelessly in love gremlin, and look, she is, and I love her for that, but in truth, her character depth is much greater than just someone head over heels in love. From being unable to express her truest passions to her closest friends, to feeling like there is a distance between herself and Koga, and sometimes outright even feeling genuine jealousy and agitation towards her. My favourite part of her character are her values and what she sees in people. When she inevitably finds out the truth behind Koga's gender, she isn't frustrated or confused by the fact she's fallen for another woman, but is instead angry that Koga hasn't come to her to tell her the truth directly, despite the fact Koga knew a crush had been forming.
And you know what? I think there's something really special about how Aya explores her own sexuality here. Her attraction to Koga is just something she feels. It transcends that of gender. Whether Koga was a guy or a girl, I don't think Aya would have minded either way. What she values in a person isn't just physicality. What she seems to admire even more is the ins and outs of a person, their goods and bads, what makes them who they are. Above all else, I think Aya is really attracted to honesty, and man, that's romantic.
It hasn't made the love of these two characters the sole focus of the series, but it is instead used it as a catalyst for these characters to explore themselves deeper. Thus, this leads me into another hook of the series and the one I want to talk about the most: the subversion of expectation. I mentioned earlier in the video about how your preconceptions and expectations of this series, based on its title, shatter within 20 chapters. This series consistently pulls the rug from under the reader's feet, but in a way that doesn't feel out of pocket. That is a hard thing to do when you're only getting about 4 pages a week, which, to be clear, is an already excessive amount. Sumiko Arai truly spoils us, and she's far too generous with their time. While it is a slower romance story that takes place every week, it is not a gag manga. Everything has purpose, and every chapter is a step forward into a larger narrative at play. When looking at it and considering the consistent rate of publication, it would lead you to assume that this delves in the realms of gag yonkoma manga, but this manga manages to break away from that label, even though it follows some of its conventions. Each chapter is the continuation of various little arcs designed to both further the relationships of its main leads, but even more profoundly, the relationships of its sidecast. Koga's uncle owns the CD shop in which she works. His name is Joe. Don't say mama, don't say mama, don't say mama, don't say... The story seems to suggest that this character and his ex had dreams they wanted to pursue when they were younger. His ex-girlfriend, Kana, don't say step on me, don't say step on me, don't say step on me, wished the two would pursue their dreams together. Their bond is incredibly strong, signified through their trust in one another, as even though she is certain there will be plenty of unknowns that lay in wake of their path, she truly believes that providing the two were together, they would overcome them somehow. But life just isn't that simple. Sometimes there are things that simply cannot be done due to a person's circumstances. While Joe would have loved to pursue their dream, he couldn't afford to leave Koga behind. And you know what? Yeah, this breaks Kana's heart, but she doesn't resent him in the slightest. She fully understands the situation, even if it prevents her from pursuing their shared passion. And what's so tight about this kind of writing is how it not only shapes these characters, but how its significance plays into the main storyline going forward when the dynamic between Koga and Aya bears its similarities. Every character feels as if they have their own lives and problems. They don't just exist as an obstacle in other people's stories, nor do they solely exist to serve our main characters in their problems as well. But man, are those problems realistic.
So realistic, in fact, it was the very moment that inspired me to make this very video. I'm gonna put up a little spoiler warning here. It's a semi-spoiler, but if you want to skip it, by all means you can.
Koga is undergoing a random wave of depression. Within the void, she is surrounded by negative thoughts. She feels as if she will forever be trapped in the same birdcage she has always felt herself within, dreaming of bigger but unable to reach those heights. In this rut, she sits, feeling as if all those around her are moving at their own pace. But she also feels as if everyone is moving far beyond her reach. Koga doesn't know what the fix is. She doesn't fully understand the pain in her heart. the only thing she's ever really understood is music. And in that moment, it comes to her. What Koga needs to do is contextualize her pain. What she needs to do is create music. She begins to create, but she very quickly becomes so enveloped in her own drive to make art that she feels even more distant than she ever has been to Aya, as if lost in her own world, unable to be reached. Koga is enveloped in her craft, but as a result neglects not just her friends, but even her own health at times. The thing about hobbies is it's really easy to get lost in them, and seeing a manga accurately depict that was not only really honest and genuine, but what I found to be even more incredible was how this situation resolves. I think it's a common trope in romance stories that characters will give up things of vital importance for the sake of the person they love. Characters will quit their incredibly well-paying job because the love of their life is catching a plane to fuck knows where. And sure, it's not a real story, it's all grounded in fiction, but there is something really refreshing about seeing a series like this tackle this idea and approach it from a more rational and mature lens. When Koga is isolating herself with her craft, yeah, it hurts Aya, she wants to be with her. But rather than making it an issue and making it all about herself, she supports Koga in her own way, by providing her delicious snacks in secret to reassure Koga that she isn't alone, and man, I love that. Because that small, sincere act of being checked in on is proof that we matter. It's proof that people care.
Oh, it means liar. Oh. Well, I guess that makes sense.
Something I feel manga doesn't get enough credit for is music. I know that is a strange statement to make considering this medium's like of, sound, but you'd be surprised how many musical anime were adapted from a pre-existing manga. Those anime sometimes even going on to create their own albums. It's not easy to write music into a narrative that's purely picture-based, but if portrayed effectively, audiences can generate the sound in their heads. The guy she was interested in was not a guy at all does something interesting though. From creating images that evoke a feeling and tone to a song you can't exactly hear, to, well, outright telling you the song being played. But this in itself is also a narrative hook, you see. The series knows for a fact you're at one point going to look these songs up, or if you're like me, instantly start listening to them to get a feeling for the scenes being played out in the manga. That's right, throughout this manga's entirety, there are small panels dedicated to the very songs our cast are listening to. This allows for an even deeper understanding of the manga's contents, as lyrics from the songs outright correlate with events we are seeing in the story itself. It all feels purposeful, as if to really drive home to readers how music is still a concept that can be explored in literature to an incredibly effective degree. Now, look, I don't know much about licensing, so I can't really speak on that, but if I had to guess, I would imagine the relationship between this story and the record labels behind the rights to these songs being used is an almost symbiotic one. Not only does this manga in a way subtly advertise these bands for free, and hey, major props to Sumiko Arai for helping really niche bands out like Nirvana and Foo Fighters. I hope one day they make it big. But due to the amount of times these songs are featured in this manga, people have started creating Spotify playlists consisting of songs they see from this very story, all with thousands of saves. For a manga's music to transcend its very paper is an incredible feat, though I had never seen it done in a way quite like this manga has. By outright referencing real songs, that's right, by cheating! But it's artistic cheating, so it's cool!
I think cheating is cool if you do it in a creative way. Don't take that out of context. Don't take that out of context.
You see what I mean though by how many tools are utilized to convey message and tone in this series? That is completely unlike what you see in most contemporary manga? From paneling to color to character expressiveness and now to music, there are various techniques utilized to give audiences a greater understanding of what it is they are reading, and for a mangaka to consistently give weekly readers that level of creative freedom, that absolutely rules. I'm not saying this story is incredibly complex, far from it. The writing and illustrations alone are enough to convey what the story is trying to say on its own. But the fact that the mangaka themselves have gone the extra mile to give people that level of immersion is absolutely incredible.
I was so in love with this manga, it inspired me to create Spotify playlists. I haven't made a musical playlist since high school. and I forgot how cathartic it was. I forgot what it was like to assemble all of these emotions through sound. Because there are going to be days where you feel like shit. There are going to be days where you feel insignificant and purposeless, but you don't have to face those days alone because music is always going to be there. This manga reminded me that music is eternal. And hey, I mean, in case you're wondering if Sumiko Arai's taste in music slaps, well...
You have no idea what it was like for me to see Loser from artist Beck be referenced in this manga. This was a song I listened to religiously back when I was in high school. Oh my god, it's been almost 10 years. Oh no, the high school reunion is drawing closer! This song had got me through many times where I simply felt empty and useless. It's a song that over time, however, faded from my memory as I began to grow up. And to see it here, referenced in the same vein, a song to listen to on sad days, man, it felt like seeing an old friend after so long, but the warmth they were remembered by still resides.
How this weekly Yuri manga series affected me so deeply, I'm sure will be exclusive to me. I'm a weird, loner loser guy who gets very, very attached to cartoon drawings, but regardless of that.
There is so much in this manga to love that I'm sure there is something for everyone within it. Whether it be a story that changes you, or a story that makes your heart flutter, whether it be a series that introduces you to music you've never heard, or simply a series that brings just a bit of comfort and happiness to your week, there is one undeniable truth. God damn, this manga rocks.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. What can I say? If you put two cute girls together doing cute things, I'm gonna watch. Respectfully, but I am gonna watch. I'm not gonna lie, I've got a bunch of video essays planned, and I'd be lying if I said any of them were of a peachy nature like this one. So before I have to do all those, I figured I might have a little palate cleanser, huh? Can I have that? Can I have that, God?
You know, in my last manga recommendation video essay thing, I mentioned how on the Miko Pickle channel, we don't do that cute shit here. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't another series down the line I would like to talk about in a similar vein, so if you enjoyed this more laid-back, less existential kind of content, hey, let me know, because I would love to cover more series like this. Before I wrap up, I just want to once again thank my wonderful Patreon supporters. I really appreciate your very generous yet completely unnecessary support. Seriously, you all spoil me rotten, and are really helping me pursue this hobby of mine professionally, and I could not be more thankful. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's genuinely super appreciated. I promise I won't take your kindness for granted. Hey, and speaking of eternally grateful, everyone please put your hands together for the following people. You better clap. I don't see your hands together. That's better. These guys have earned at least the clap. Big thanks to the following for their level 4 patronage. Mighty Dom, Lux Koa, Jake Regan, Sea of Clouds, Lantern Larry, Pigeon, and Why Do You Ask? Thank you so much for your absolutely insane support. It genuinely means the world. Every single one of y'all are invited to the next year's birthday party. Yes, there will be a piñata. No, you'll have to bring your own drinks. That's it from me. With that, a toast to all the poor lesbians out there who stopped existing as soon as International Lesbian Day concluded. Rest in peace.